Coogs house. The Houston Cougars get back on track against Louisiana, and after scoring 91 points, I still think the defense was the most impressive part of the day.
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs Daily Podcast, all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater that came to step by, thank you for making Locked On Coogs your first, or at this point, it might be your last, or one of your last listens if you're with us live. Whatever listen of the day you make us, we appreciate you making us your first on a traditional day and your first go-to place in a post-game situation as well. If you want to join the conversation below, don't know what to say, obviously in the live chat, tell us what you think about the game, etc. But if you still can't think of something, tell us what your, I think I already asked this once this week, what your favorite Cajun dish is. So ask what your favorite Ragin dish is. Whichever. Tell me in the comments down below. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Best place to get tickets to this game and more. We got more on that fun later. Go to Game Time, download the app, use code Locked On College. I want to talk some. Who's Frankly? I don't know who Frankly is. People are commenting and stuff that I don't know about. So I want to talk some in this one about kind of where this game puts us. I want to talk some about a lineup I thought was interesting and the pros and cons of that lineup that saw a lot of time in the late first half and the middle of the second half. But first and foremost, as I get my screen set up here accurately, this is the problem with doing a live show. I want to talk some about just what we just saw happen with the Houston Cougars. Houston beats Louisiana 91-45. And I really think that the defense is a more impressive story than the 91 points Houston scored on offense, if that's even really possible. Houston, I think the widely circulated stat after this game is that Houston's got more steals in this game, 17, than the Ragin Cajuns had made field goals. That's 15. That's not very many made field goals. You also had Houston with more made free throws, 19, than the Ragin Cajuns had made field goals, 15. You had more offensive rebounds, 18, than the Ragin Cajuns had made field goals, again, 15. You had almost as many assists, 13, as the Ragin Cajuns had made field goals, 15. Across the board, holding Louisiana to just 15 made shots, only 46 attempts, I would stress as well, in a game that had, if I were guesstimating, I'd say somewhere in the, like low 60s in terms of possessions. That's indicative of a great effort, turning them over, forcing them into bad shots, getting the rebound, getting the block, and running. Points off turnovers went Houston's way in a big way about middle of the first half. They finished with 27 points off turnovers. Again, all of those steals leading to kickouts and stuff like that. Leads obviously a lot of fast break points, and fast break points are points in the bins and points in the paint and that kind of stuff too. Lots going on in this one defensively. Active hands. You got Javier Francis back. Was great to see him back and moving around, really flying around in this one. I also think that you saw Terrence Moore because he's getting back from that Achilles injury a little bit more. And then this story I think a lot of people are rolling with is that after not seeing him in the previous game, he got a did not play coach's decision against Auburn. Houston rolls out Mercy Miller, the freshman, the very talented freshman, for 21 minutes in this ball game. Mercy is a tremendous scorer. The widely assumed thing was that his defense is continuing to catch up to the Houston Cougar, the Houston Cougar standard. And Sampson said in his availability this week that he was kicking himself, wish he'd found a way to get Mercy in the game last weekend. Mercy gets 21 minutes in this one. That's tied for the second most minutes of anyone on the roster. And it didn't feel forced because Mercy finished with 12 points, on 9 shots. He had more points than he had minutes in the first half, for what it's worth. He also added in 4 steals and 2 assists. Mercy is the kind of guy that I think is very clear. I think my tweet I put out, I'd put it at January. He's going to work his way into that true 7 or 8 man rotation. He offensively is already one of the best guys you kind of have on the floor from that instance. And then he's athletic enough to play defense at Houston standard, which is why he was a top 60 recruit, why they wanted him, etc. He just continued to get more and more acclimated with what they're asking him. There's still times where he's like palms up trying to figure out things, but he clearly has a knack for finding the basketball, as seen in those 4 steals in 21 minutes. And he's really, really, I think, continuing to be an impressive basketball player for this team. I think, again, he's in your main rotation by January. I think Terrence is too. Terrence played he played the most minutes in this game at 24, and that's almost twice as many minutes as he played over the weekend against Auburn. Now, we were worried about, like, what does that say about his Achilles and stuff like that against Auburn? I at first thought that they'd sub him out when they kind of cleared the bench. They left Terrence in toward till the end of the game. And, I guess the pro to that, I think Geddes said it first on TV, is that in a low stakes situation, he's proving that his body can stand playing 24 minutes, and that's got to be a big mental hurdle for a guy coming off of and over the fence of that injury, right? Tearing your Achilles last December. We're not even a full year out from that. That's usually at least a year-long injury. It's great to be young and regenerate fast, I guess. Really, really impressive effort, defensive effort, especially out of Terrence. In this one, I was talking to someone during the game, texting back and forth. I can't believe Houston doesn't start Terrence. And I don't mean that because I know who I would take out. I don't know who to take out either. It's a great problem to have. Terrence is a luxury, having that kind of he would start for 360 college basketball teams in America. 360 Division I basketball teams. He is that kind of good. And Houston gets to pull that kind of guy off the bench. Just unreal. Francis being back was a big part of this. I opened the segment talking about him some. He had 3 big blocks, 4 rebounds, played just 13 minutes. So obviously still rotating his way back in. But it's a whole lot different than it looked like last week, because he kind of stayed in throughout with the starters the whole time. Like Juwan Roberts only played 16 minutes in this one, right? Got to evenly spread that out throughout the entire lineup. Other impressive guys in this one, Milos Uzan, I want to talk some in the second segment because I think he's a key part of the small lineup, small, I guess, being in air quotes, that I noticed and liked. But it continues to be an impressive addition to this team. Cannot express the role he's stepping into, right? Stepping into replacing Jamal Shedd, who I would imagine is going to get his name put up on the wall by Akeem and Clyde and those guys one day in the near future. And so, stepping into those shoes is no small feat, and he's doing it very, very well. Obviously, no one is Jamal. You can't replace Jamal with one person, but 13 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, 21 minutes, and it never felt like he was like stealing the spotlight from anyone else. He was just organizing the game, keeping things at a great pace. Milos continues to be just a great, great seamless transition into being a Houston Cougar, and really, his 6'3", 6'4" frame plus his style of play makes him kind of a key focal point of something that I think is a really important lineup for this team to utilize moving forward. I want to talk some about that lineup and talk some about what that lineup brings to the table, and another potential lineup that you could see happening that we don't see a whole lot of right now. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by our buddies at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. They got all kinds of great things going on FanDuel all the time. Right now, if you put down $5 and that bet hits, you can get $150 back in bonus bets. It's your first bet down on FanDuelSportsbook.com. So use the app to get all kinds of information on live play-by-play, live stats, etc. for all the NFL games happening in one place. They also do college sports and college games. This weekend, they got Houston as a 2.5-point dog still, as the last I checked, against Arizona. I think Houston beats Arizona outright, so make sure you get in on the action today at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Parker Ainsworth locked on Coogs here, breaking down Houston's 91-45 victory over the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns. Now, obviously, Louisiana Lafayette is not like known for being a basketball power. They do very well in their conference, very well at their size. They're in the tournament every so often, but the kind of program Houston's built themselves into, this was never a contest you're necessarily worried about getting upset in by any stretch. It's really more about working on things coming out of the Auburn game. And one thing Louisiana does really well, and I'm going to keep saying Louisiana, even though I want to say Louisiana Lafayette, but they changed their name a while back, so I'm trying to be right and use the right name. One thing that Louisiana changed has done really well the last couple of years is they defend the three-point line. And so in simple schematics, what that means is you sprint out and close out in a way on three-point jump shots that makes them put the ball on the ground. And then once they put the ball on the ground, you force them to drive inside the three-point line, hoping you got a helper at the rim, right, if you maybe accidentally give up too much space, right? What that means is that you typically have to beat them without shooting a whole lot of threes because they're not going to allow a whole lot of comfortable three-point looks. Houston not only took 23 three-pointers in this game and made 10 of them, they also, for what it's worth, I thought utilized a specific lineup to take advantage of that, and it worked really, really well. So at one point you had Milo Suzan, Emmanuel Sharp, L.J. Cryer, Ramon Walker, sometimes Terrence Arsenault, and then you had JoJo Tugler on the floor at one time, and all five players, whether it was Terrence or Ramon, stood outside the three-point line for a true five-out offense. This is very like modern wave, 7 seconds or less Suns kind of basketball from a schematics perspective, and they weren't doing anything too complicated outside of passing and cutting and giving space on dribble drives, right? I'm going to say they're experts at it. It's not like they've spent a whole lot of time on anything like that, but this is an innovative new way to play basketball where guys are kind of all playing on the perimeter. Tugler being out there as athletic as he is, as long as he is, as quickly as he gets to the basket with like 2 strides. He also has hit a 3 this season, right? Didn't hesitate to pull it whenever he's pulled one. It really opens up the floor for driving lanes. And so what's happening in this lineup and what happened in this lineup is they're taking advantage of what Louisiana wants to do. They drive, they kick. Louisiana runs guys off the three-point line, but there's no backside help to help at the rim because Houston's playing 5 outside the three-point line, and there's no way a guy can get to help from his guy to inside the lane at the rim and back and forth. They're really toying with that help side defender, and so they were essentially just drive, kick till someone eventually got to the rim and there was no help side there, right, because they're wearing out the defense. And this small ball lineup made an appearance in the late first half, and again for a short stint of the second half. They rotated the power forward, air quotes, was between Ramon and Terrence. But on the whole, a key to this was Tugler being outside the three-point line. I think, while he's not the threat to shoot necessarily, Juwan Roberts, or at least we haven't seen it out there in a game. There's videos of doing it at practice. I think you could see Juwan Roberts, because of his passing ability, being there for the same kind of thing. He also puts the ball on the floor pretty well for a big guy, bouncing it. Regardless, this line, the small ball Houston Cougar lineup is really, really a chance to unlock something else out of this team, right? Then with the toughness, the defense, the rebounding, and that typically, for whatever reason, involves a lot of size. If Houston can keep those same motifs about themselves while being a more guard happy offense, I don't know how you cover them all, right? Because if JoJo's going to go 1 of 3 from 3, you kind of have to cover him in college basketball. If Ramon or Terrence are shooting the 3 well, you got to cover them. We know what LJ can do. We know what Emmanuel can do. Suddenly, all 5 guys outside need to be covered. But then you go to the other end, Ramon and Terrence can guard most forwards in America. If it's guys under 7 foot tall, I'd trust Terrence or Ramon on them. And over 7 feet tall, I frankly still probably would, but I just don't want to be his blanket statement on it. JoJo's got the rim. He protects and plays the big guy with his length. And then on the perimeter, you've got Emmanuel, LJ, and Milos. You're starting 3 guards, and it's a really, really strong lineup from that instance. I want to see Houston also at some point, and I'm sure we'll see it because they're playing with different lineups and things like that. I want to see Houston go to a gigantic lineup, right? So I don't know if it's Jawan or JoJo at the 3, but I have all 3, JoJo, Jawan, and JBR on the floor all at one time, right? Have those 3 guys play the forwards and center spots, and then the 2 guard. Hear me out here, Terrence Arsenault. So you go 6'5" and change, then 6'8", 6'9", 6'9". All of those guys having crazy long wingspans. All 4 of those guys having crazy long wingspans. And the point guard being Milo Suzan. Milos is 6'3", 6'4" himself and see the floor very well. I think that because of the way that Juwan Roberts passes, the way JoJo Tugler is athletic, I think that actually still has versatility on offense in a way that would just allow you to wall up and be a gigantic defensive side. Terrence shot the ball from 3 pretty well tonight as far as his coming back goes. He missed a couple heat checky ones. He finished 2 of 8, but he hit a couple in rhythm, had a nice one off of his own steal as well in that game. I think whatever lineup they run out, and I don't mean to steal a point that got sent to me in a comment here, but TI7791 is a fairly frequent listener, so he probably knew they probably knew I was already getting to this. But the ball movement was very refreshing compared to the last game. Houston in this game, and I would say some of the credit in the last game has to go to Auburn's defense. It's a great defense, and they're going to make it with the ball on the ground, putting the ball on the ground. Takes away an assist, right? But in this game, Houston did finish with 13 assists. I was, frankly, if being honest, surprised it wasn't over 15. But 13 assists is a lot for this team, especially when you think about like all those kick ahead, fast breaky kind of things. Once they put the ball on the ground, typically takes away the assist in most rule books or most score books. The ball movement has been really, really nice. And I got to say, credit on that goes to Milos. Milos replaced Jamal Shed, and there were times last year where if Houston needed someone to get 30, they'd get Jamal to do it, right? If Houston needed someone to get 20, 10, and 5, Jamal would do it. Milos hasn't had the scoring prowess necessarily that Jamal had, but Milos has been able to use his height, his size to see open guys. He had one beautiful pass on the break. It wasn't a great ball movement pass because it was just a fast break, but he scanned the floor, staring down the corner. I think he had Emmanuel in the corner, and then saw the defense starts to wander over the corner because Emmanuel's in the corner ready to shoot a 3, and had a wide open, I believe it was Tugler underneath the rim, hit him in stride for a 2-handed dunk. But his eyes, you could just see it in slow motion on the TV screen as Uzan went from the middle of the floor to the corner. The defender went with him, and he just threw the ball back to the middle of the floor where no one was standing or looking besides Tugler. He's a really gifted passer with great vision. It's really done wonders for this offense. Even, obviously they lost the game over the weekend, but he really kind of keeps things going in that way as far as getting the ball moving around some. Other guys that passed the ball particularly well tonight. I thought Mercy did a pretty good job. He scored, so he kind of came in 2 different spurts. His first spurt, he got a bunch of baskets. But when Mercy came in the second time through and the defense had kind of adjusted to, okay, this guy's going to shoot the ball whenever he touches it, Mercy did a great job of getting other guys involved, rotating it, spinning around, finding the extra pass, etc. And that's, I think, shows his growth and development as a player. I said it in the first segment. I'll say it this segment again. I'll say it again. I'm sure after every single game they play when Mercy gets on the floor, the guy has the ability to be one of the best scorers in America. He's just got a knack and a gift for finding space, getting to his spots, and frankly, part of it's elevate. There's my frankly, Nate. Frankly, I was talking to that guy. Thanks for pointing that out, Nate. Now I'm going to think about it all the time. But Mercy has a knack for when he gets to his spots, gets to where he wants to be on the floor, squeezes through this, runs around that. He elevates so much off the ground on his jump shot. He is listed at 6'4". He's got long arms. The ball is really high in the air when he gets it off. It's hard to deter him or deflect it or block it, certainly. And that adds a layer to this, too. He does some things very naturally looking that should not be as natural as they are. And again, once he picks up this defense side, I think he understands it. It's more about the speed. And again, he had 4 steals tonight, so it won't always be the speed, I don't think. But Mercy's going to be a key player for this team in Big 12 play in March. Kind of like you saw Tugler do some last year, where Tugler came on more as the year went on as a freshman. I would say that, I guess, Emmanuel played a lot more because the team wasn't quite as deep. But Emmanuel's freshman year, he kind of did the same kind of thing as well. Sampson understands how to bring guys along over the course of a year, and he'll tell you all the time that you're not playing March basketball as far as quality of basketball in October or November very often, right? This team will be ready come March because they've got all these guys. And that's actually kind of what I wanted to spend my final segment here talking about, in a game where everyone played a lot of minutes. Cordell played 8 minutes. I want to talk some about the bench and the bench depth. But before we get to that, I want to remind you about our buddies over at Game Time, because Game Time is presenting today's episode to you. Now, Game Time is the best app to get tickets to concerts, sporting events, theater, comedy shows, whatever. If it's in a theater or other kind of thing, they can get you in the door. I love that you can see what it's going to look like from your seat, section, row, see what it's going to look like with the sight lines for that type of event at that type of venue. I love that you can get all-in pricing. There's not a whole bunch of surprise fees at the end, because those are a beatdown. I love also, and this is the thing my pocket loves as well, and the thing that convinces my wife to get tickets to things sometimes, is if you can find cheaper tickets in the same section and row somewhere else, Game Time credits you back 110% of the difference in your account. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks, where they help you find the best deal in the stadium. Right now, Houston hosting Baylor in football, the blowout game, the Houston Blue game. You're getting a lower bowl for $46 last I checked. Now, if people are listening to me, those might have already gone away. There's all kinds of seats available. Go check it out at Game Time. Download Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here, breaking down Houston beating Louisiana 91-45. I had a football coach one time that I think would describe that as beating someone like they stole something. I don't know if that's actually kosher to say anymore, but anyway, that's what, I'm not going to put his name out there. If it's not okay to say, I had a football coach say that one time fairly regularly. In this game, though, you didn't just win 91-45. You didn't just dominate with defense. You didn't just have interesting lineups and usages of guys and things like that. You also had a chance to play nearly everyone 10 minutes or more. Cordell finished with 8 minutes. That was the lowest on the team. Most guys, I guess, he had said a lot at 10 minutes. Javier played 13. Everyone else was 15 or more minutes across the board. Really balanced minute totals as you ran through Louisiana and the school, not the state. And I feel like that's interesting coming off of an Auburn game where, frankly, people were criticizing. There's frankly, and I just thought of it again. People were criticizing Kelvin Sampson for not using that depth in a game that Kelvin Sampson, I would argue, coached like it was a February or March game where the focus was winning, not necessarily getting better or developing. And not that they're not trying to win other games too, but he really wanted that one, it felt like, right? In this game, when you are developing, you get a lot more guys. People were kind of wondering why some of these guys didn't play. The biggest question was Mercy Miller, because Mercy is such a great, gifted scorer, and he didn't get to play in the Auburn game at all. It didn't help coach's case for not playing him, that Auburn was, reinvigorated or got a big boost out of their freshman point guard, Todd Pettiford. We've litigated that one to go through all that. This game, though, is where you can see that bench develop. And you saw Mercy with the 4 steals do a couple of things better on defense in this one than they did before. They're going to go back. They're going to watch tape. They're going to grind some stuff out at practice. They're going to figure some things out and keep getting better. My complaint after the Auburn game was that Sid Lott did not necessarily get to play. And if Francis was as injured as he was, or maybe he got re-injured in that game, what's it take to see some Sid Lott? He can't redshirt, so why hadn't we seen him in this game? He had 10 minutes, had a couple points, 5 rebounds in just 10 minutes is pretty impressive. He also had an assist. I would say that Seth is getting better, and so they'll watch this film, grind this tape, break this down, get better, those kinds of things. As this keeps on going, it's going to be interesting to see who lands in that 7 or 8 man rotation, and if Houston can kind of defy logic and odds and really get to more of a 9 or even 10 man rotation. It's kind of crazy to think about when you think about basketball, but for whatever reason, rosters typically have 12 to 15. That's why the scholarship numbers are the way they are in basketball. And you still only end up playing around 8 in a tight-knit competitive game. That's kind of just logistics in college basketball. You play 40 minutes. You want to make sure all your guys that get in the game, your best players, have a chance to like really get in the groove, but not overshadow one another. Kind of take, they play well together, etc. It's just kind of the way rotations work out. 8 people is frankly on the high end. If you have 8 great players, you're really good all of a sudden. Houston's got a lot of great players, and it's kind of working on figuring out what does a 9 or 10 man rotation look like for a good team, because you also have bad teams that will just rotate through guys because it doesn't matter. That's not quite what Houston wants to get the pieces of the puzzle in the right place as well, right? It's not just about putting them on the table. But do you go to that 8 or 9 man rotation? Do you extend it to 10, which is kind of unheard of, and frankly, any level of basketball outside of rec league stuff, you don't typically get a full 10 deep on things unless you're just a crazy recruiting high school or something like that, right? But this team really has it. You got your 5 starters. Milos, who we talked about being phenomenal. Emmanuel, who had a rough start to this game, but really finished pretty strong, I thought. L.J. is a preseason conference player of the year. J1 is preseason conference player of the year. JVA is your best starting center, so he's going to be on the floor as well. But you also have Tugler coming off the bench. He was kind of your 6th man for important games last year and clearly has a toughness, played through a broken foot, and gave you a lot of productive minutes in multiple basketball games last year. Terrence, I'm telling you, the kid's a pro. Take it. Cordell's going to be good. Tugler's going to be good. Mercy's going to be good. A lot of these bench guys are going to be good. Houston's bringing Terrence Arsenal off the bench, and that guy is going to be an NBA basketball player. Like he just moves different. He's got longer arms and does it all. Like the dude's that kind of good. Wait and see. Wait and see on that one. But we mentioned Mercy, Ramon, Malik played 18 minutes in this one against his former school. Had 7 points and 4 rebounds. One of those baskets towards 7 points was a tremendous dunk. The reaction from the bench, the celebration of which from the bench, ended up actually pulling out a technical foul. That kind of crazy dunk. It was kind of technical foul on the crazy dunk, celebrating it, that Sampson didn't even look that mad about the technical on. That's how crazy the dunk was. If you did not see the game, so go check it out after you get done listening to this. In that reading of the bench, Tugler kind of plays a big man spot. Terrence plays a combo wing spot. Mercy plays a combo guard spot. Malik and Ramon are kind of playing a lot of different positions, though Malik is playing more backup point than anything right now. It's kind of how he finished last season as well. That right there would be 9. The one glaring thing I see is typically if you go 9, you've got one forward that can be both a small center and a big guard, like a big 3. And I don't know who that is on this lineup. Now, I guess if Tugler's hitting 3s, it might be him, but that'd kind of be the swing guy you'd see take a lineup from an 8 deep to a 9 or 10 deep, is someone who can play a few of those spots as well. Because then they can play with both Javier and J1. They can play with Emmanuel and L.J. Or they can play with all the different guys, right? I think what you're going to see against Hofstra in about, 10 days from now, a week from Friday, against Hofstra, again in Fertitta, what you're going to see is another game where you have a lot of even rotations, but the guys on the floor are going to be kind of jigsawed a little bit differently, and who they're going to be paired up with. You might not see the small ball, you might see all 3s, or you might see, I don't know, all lefties, or some. Sampson will find something to do, but you'll see more lineups rotating these guys through a little bit differently. Before you head to Vegas, to play Alabama and Notre Dame and everyone in Vegas in that not MTE, it's the NIL Players Invitational. And what that really means is that there might be some dry scoring droughts in the Hofstra game as you mix these lineups up. What you're really going to see is, as a 20 lineups, is what kinds of ways can you figure out lineups that get all this talent in the game, because then you can close with your best lineup and their legs will be fresher. Further, you'll also have guys with less wear and tear as you go through the Big 12 gauntlet into March. Now, I don't mean to tell you that detracts and takes away injuries from ever happening. You can be completely fresh, well rested, and all your ankle walking down the street and hitting the sidewalk wrong. But on the whole, it has to help some, right? Less reps, less opportunity, less wear and tear on the ligaments has to all help some. So we'll see how they continue to navigate that. It's a balancing act, though, because you go from an Auburn game to this game, Hofstra, and then back to Alabama. I bet Alabama you see an 8 or 9 man rotation at best. You're certainly not going to see 11 or 12 unless the thing gets really, really wonky one way or the other, right? So keep an eye on that between now and Hofstra. I guess Hofstra game will be the next telltale sign of that. We've got all kinds of football things this week. I want to stress Ken. So Ken's frequent commenter here. I want to read this one, though, because that's what we were just talking about. I almost missed it. Ken comments that the energy that Mercy and Ramon Walker bring is mind-blowing. And I think that's the deal here. Is when you bring that kind of fresh leg energy off the bench, it can be really, really challenging for an opponent. So we'll get to see it unfold all season long. We're doing it each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. Locked On Cougs is the primary of the Locked On podcast network. That means your team, our Houston Cougars, every day and night, apparently. Go Cougs.